This is part one of the Titanic story.
In Belfast, in the early years of the 20th century, the air is thick with smoke from the shipyards, the clanging of hammers echoes across the docks, and everywhere you look men are swarming over a skeleton of steel, so massive it seems to scrape the sky. This was not just another ship. To the men who built it, to the company that financed it, and to the public who read about it breathlessly in newspapers, this was a marvel of modern times. The Titanic. It's hard to understand today just how revolutionary she seemed back then. In 1910, when her keel was first laid, the world was entering a new age of machines. Airplanes had barely taken flight. Automobiles sputtered noisily along dirt roads, but ships were kings of technology. They were the internet, the skyscrapers, the space rockets of their day. And Titanic was the crown jewel. Harland and Wolff, the Belfast shipbuilding company, employed more than 15,000 men, many of them working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, pounding rivets, hoisting steel, sweating in the cold Irish air. The ship grew like a mountain on the slips. Plate by plate, beam by beam, she rose until her hull towered higher than the city's rooftops. Workers joked that the Titanic was so big she changed the weather when you walked beneath her shadow. But Titanic wasn't just about size, though at nearly 900 feet long and 11 stories tall, she was by far the largest ship ever built. She was about ambition, and about something even bigger. Pride. The White Star Line, her owners, wanted to outdo their rivals at Cunard, who had built the fastest liners on the Atlantic. White Star couldn't win on speed, so they aimed for luxury and grandeur. Titanic was to be a floating palace, a city at sea, a place where the world's richest people could cross the ocean in comfort, unmatched on land. Her interiors were designed like a grand hotel in London or Paris. Imagine oak-paneled lounges with glittering chandeliers, a sweeping staircase with ornate iron railings, topped by a glass dome that let sunlight pour through, private suites with fireplaces, sitting rooms, and their own promenades, a heated swimming pool, Turkish baths, electric elevators. Even the second-class accommodations would have looked first-class on other ships. And third-class immigrants packed into bunks and dormitories on most liners was here treated better than anyone had dared dream. Titanic's steerage passengers had clean, bright cabins, dining halls where they ate proper meals served by waiters, and space to stroll on deck. For many, this ship was the first taste of dignity they'd ever been given at sea. The newspapers loved it. The public adored it. Titanic was called Unsinkable before she ever touched the water. Her hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments, each sealed by giant doors that could close at the push of a button. The company boasted that even if 4 of those compartments flooded, the ship would still float. That, they said, was impossible to beat. One magazine declared her practically unsinkable. The word stuck. To the men in power, J. Bruce Ismay of White Star Line, financier J. P.A. Morgan in America, the shipbuilders in Belfast. Titanic was more than a ship. She was proof that man could conquer nature, that steel and steam could master the wild Atlantic, that the new century belonged to human progress. But let's not forget the human side. While investors toasted with champagne, laborers risked their lives every day in the yards. Harland and Wolff's men were called riveters and heaters. One boy held a glowing hot rivet with tongs, another caught it in a bucket, and 2 men hammered it into the steel while sparks flew. It was dangerous, brutal work. By the time Titanic was finished, at least 8 workers had been killed on the job, and dozens more injured. Their names never appeared in the headlines. By 1911, Titanic's hull was ready for launch. A crowd of more than 100,000 gathered to watch as she slid down greased wooden ways into the water. No bottle of champagne was smashed across her bow. White Star claimed it was superstition. Instead, she simply glided into the River Lagan, immense and silent, dwarfing every tugboat that came to guide her. Over the next year, her interiors were fitted out. Craftsmen polished wood, hung draperies, installed carpets so thick they muffled every footstep. When she was finished, she weighed more than 46,000 tons, 3 times larger than Noah's Ark was said to be. Her funnels rose like towers, painted in white stars colors of buff and black. She was not just a ship anymore. She was a legend in the making. And the world noticed. Tickets for her maiden voyage sold fast. In first class, the wealthiest families in America and Europe signed on. The Astors, the Widenas, the Guggenheims, millionaires whose fortunes were as famous as their names. In second class, teachers, merchants, and tourists eager for a taste of luxury. And in third class, hundreds of emigrants from Ireland, Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, hoping for new lives in the United States. For them, Titanic was more than transport, it was hope, opportunity, a golden ticket across the ocean. Every story, every dream, every expectation was packed into that ship as she prepared for her maiden voyage in April 1912. No one imagined what awaited her. No one could. And yet there were warnings. Some shipbuilders whispered that Titanic's design, though impressive, had flaws. They worried about the quality of her rivets, about the lack of lifeboats, only enough for about half the people aboard. But those voices were quiet, drowned out by the roar of publicity. Titanic was the pride of an age, and pride has a way of silencing doubt. So on April 10, 1912, the Titanic stood ready in Southampton, gleaming, immaculate, her gangways open to receive the stream of humanity about to board her. The greatest voyage in history was about to begin. As the passengers filed up the gangway, unaware they were stepping into history, the Titanic gave a low, mournful blast of her horn. The sound carried across the harbor, deep and heavy. It was the voice of a giant and perhaps, though no one realized it then, a warning of what was to come.